Alright, on this Pathfinder, I've put in an aftermarket steering wheel, and I put in a horn button, the little trigger, but it didn't work, so I am going to try this again. I've got all of the video of how I put this steering wheel in, and that is the Pathfinder column, but the truck pretty much is the same, slight differences on some of the switches and things. And I test fit this column cover to make sure everything was going to be good, because on the inside of this I've had to redo a bunch of the switches. So we're going to pull this column cover back off. We're going to be very careful with this because these are getting very hard to find. If I was to break this, it's getting hung up right here on this corner. I'll make sure that screw is all the way out, and I'll cut you back on and show you what I'm going to do about this horn button. Alright, that is the factory plug. I believe I've added this blue wire in to trigger some of the items with the key. That triggers a 8 amp relay, and then everything runs off of that relay. And I've got some of this right here, goes through this plug, that is the blinkers. And then on this side I've added a different plug as well. I've tucked it underneath so it does fit. That is the plug that I've added, and it does fit. The column cover fits, so we're good to go on all of that. Okay, so the brown wire that I have here comes from the horn, and that goes over here to a brown wire coming out of this that goes into the little block that was mounted under here. That is the clock spring. I've eliminated the clock spring because I don't need any of that stuff. That was the airbag and the horn, but also the steering controls for the cruise control. On the back side of here is where I'm going to need to drag on that, and I can mount something on the bottom side of this plastic piece. So we are going to use this. This was about $12 off of eBay, and that has got a sleeve right here, and it's got its brass or whatever, and it is spring loaded. There is a spring inside of here. The spring won't come out, but spring is in there. So the other one that I had, I've got a round tube up in here somewhere, right there, and I mounted that with some screws and some glue, and that did not work. It was this, and what it was doing is just popping out. It's mounted too far away, so I'm gonna have to mount something closer. I went ahead and ordered a longer one of those. Instead of a little button, it is a longer piece, and that tube will fit into something. I can fit it up into here and drag onto that right there. So what I've got to do is find some kind of tube that will fit onto this, and then I can have the adjustability in and out to make it closer or further away. Once I find a tube for this, then we'll get started on it. found a nut that fit over that, and I just pulled the rubber off and slid the nut up over all of the wire and into that tube. And with that nut fit right there, that's pretty much where I need it. It's going to be dragging, and it drags hard enough to make it fall out, obviously. But that nut will slide right up over that. I can glue that or just let the spring hold it up in there. Probably go ahead and put a dab of glue in there once I get this put together. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the steering wheel off, and I'll get in here and look and see how to mount that nut onto this plastic right here. This should really take care of it. All right, I'll catch you back on. I'm just kind of using parts that I've got laying around with that nut, and now I've got a washer and a screw. This washer is way too big for that screw, but it's okay. I'm going to go ahead and weld the washer to the nut, just like that. Not on here, because then it will melt the plastic. I'm going to take all of this apart. I'm going to weld the nut to the washer, and then I will let that cool off, and I'll put this piece back on after it's cool. I'll put some glue in there to help hold that together, and then I will screw that back onto here and hook my ground up. I'll stick the steering wheel back on, and I should be good to go. I've got some extra horns that I bought for this. Before I put the grill back in, I'm going to go ahead and put those other horns on, and then we will test this, make sure this works. Alright, I'll cut you back on in a minute. Alright, right here you can see the pin is barely touching the edge of that. Ended up, whenever I welded it, it was a little bit crooked. So with it crooked, I went ahead and put it over here on this side. It fits better, but it's still a long ways away. So what I'm going to do is pull this out a little ways, and I'm going to glue that right there. And with that glued, I can glue it it's a little bit wobbly, not too bad. I'm going to glue it where it's up like this, if it'll focus on me. Alright, so with it glued like that right there, it should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and get some epoxy. I went ahead and screwed it on that side. This side, it was ended up angled up in there, and I could have easily bent that, but I just went ahead and stuck it on the other side. It's not a big deal. And I swapped out the screw for a longer screw. This is just a standard sheetrock screw. It fit right in there real easy. I'll pause you. So that is the sheetrock screw. I'm pretty sure this is where the factory button piece fit on this one. This was I think it was a 97 Hardbody. I know this is a Pathfinder, but I've swapped everything around. Everything was kind of not wanting to work, so I had a 97 Hardbody truck, and I'm pretty certain this came off of that, and I ended up having to I know what happened. I've got a 4-cylinder in here, and the wiring harness wouldn't go for the Pathfinder switches. So I went and got my Hardbody switches, and then the Hardbody switches wouldn't fit in this black piece for the Pathfinder. So I had to take the Hardbody black piece here off and fit it to this steering column for the Pathfinder. So I've got a Pathfinder column, Pathfinder key lock, and then the 97 Hardbody truck black piece here. I removed all the clock springs, and then this is the truck blinkers and wipers. So that's what I'm using, and all of the Hardbody harness. So this is basically a truck at this point for this. So I'm going to glue that, and then I'll wait about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then I will come back and make sure everything fits and works. In the meantime, while I'm waiting for that glue to dry, I can go ahead and put my horns in. I just mixed up some of this 2-part epoxy and used a strap piece of wire, and then I glued that up in there and screwed that back on. And if you pull on the wire, if you pull down, then it pushes that up kind of where I wanted it. And so I just used that ratchet right there just to hold that wire down, and it looks like it's wanting to drip. So I'll just get rid of that little extra. And what I'm wanting to do is not glue that button in there. If I glue that button in there, I probably got to start all over. So hopefully I did not overdo that glue. We'll find out in a few minutes. And then I'll flip my light off here. We'll go to the front. We'll see about putting these horns in. I got to try to figure out where the factory horns were mounted. They were down in here somewhere. I'll figure that out and we'll see about putting them in. These are the aftermarket horns that I've got, and these have a positive and a negative on the back side. And once I figure out where I'm going to mount these, I can get these tightened down. I think what I'm going to do is, whenever I get these, this bracket, whenever I get a position figured out on that, I think what I'm going to do is take my negative and send it over to here and run a ring terminal, and then the female blade terminal here. I'll tighten that down and I'll have my negative, and then all I'll have to do is find my power coming in wherever it's at. This harness is in there somewhere. I've been working on that. This is going to be kind of a pain. My hood tilts over the front, so getting in here and hooking that up will be kind of a pain, but we will figure that out. And poor truck has just been sitting in here, so it's kind of dirty, dusty. I'll cut you back on once I figure out where these go. I've got some more trucks that I can look at. I don't think this one, I don't hardly ever open the hood on this one, so it doesn't even have an engine. I don't know, it looks like the horn down there. Alright, I'll figure something out and I'll cut you back on in a little bit. Alright, it appears that the bolt that holds these in is a M8 with a 1.25 thread, but the hole is too small, so I am drilling the hole out a little bit bigger so the bolt will fit. I don't know what size drill bit this is. It doesn't have to be exact. These are pretty cheap. This bracket is super thin, but we will see if it will hold together. Alright, I'll cut you back on in a minute. On these horns, what I've got now is that, and if you hook ground up to this bar and then positive over to that terminal, they do honk. That is good to go. This is a 13 millimeter. If the factory bolt is what you're using, it will be a 12 millimeter. And what I've discovered is this wire for the horn is only on the driver's side. It is green, I believe, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it's got a stripe or something, but we're going to use a green wire. We're going to stretch a green wire over to this other side. Eventually, whenever I get all of this put together, I will finish the wire loom. I'm going to run halos in these, and I'm going to run halos in this, and also this will be driving lights. So I will have to finish this wiring up. I've got a purple wire going to one switch. This red wire is going to the other switch. One of those is for driving lights. The other is for the halos. I'll just finish all that later. I will eventually run all of this in the same loom going across so that it is nice and pretty. But for now, I'm just going to stretch this across. I will start with this one, get this one wire hooked up, get it put in, get the wire cut to length. I'll stretch it over, and then I will piggyback it into this other wire, and then I will use a connector and go to that horn on this side, and then bolt them in. Bolting these in with the bumper on is probably going to be a lot of work. As you can tell, mine doesn't have the big hole. Yours has the big hole, which it probably will. I handmade this bumper, so these are exhaust reducers, and you can just put a driving light inside there so the hole tapers in because it is an exhaust reducer. But anyway, that's how I built this bumper. Alright, I'll see if I can get some wires stretched, and I'll cut you back on in a minute. I got all of that bolted in and all of that wired up. I've got it going over here, and I just hooked it in there with a male blade into the factory female blade. And if that appears like it's not going to stay or something, then I can change that. But I think making that little harness removable might make it easier on me to wire loom this later. Alright, I've got this where I can barely open it. Pushed it a little bit further forward so I could get up in here. Alright, let's see. So now we're going to remove that, and that does work. Alright. Get this light down here where we can see a little bit easier. That dripped. It's going to be perfectly fine. That is awesome. Okay. It dripped onto my RCAs. Okay. Let's see how this steering wheel will fit. It fits real good on the bottom of that steering wheel. If I can video that for you. It appears to be exactly what we need. I'm going to go ahead and bolt this on. What I'm using is 19mm. I'm going to go ahead and just get this kind of snug. I'll just go ahead and tighten it up. I think it's all good. I'll go ahead and get this tight. We'll put the horn button on and we'll test it. Alright, now what I've got to do is hook up that male to that female. And what I've had to do the other time that I put this together, I put a little bit of oil on that ring right there because it didn't really want to go on all the way. I thought maybe it was hitting something, but it wasn't. It was just needed a little bit of lubrication. So, alright, I'm going to use two hands here. I'm going to get that put together and get the horn button put in. There is no logo, so I can put this on pretty much anywhere I want. But there is a cutout right here. I'm going to put that cutout toward the bottom if I can. That is so you can put your flathead screwdriver and pop this dude off if you need to. Alright, I'll cut you back on in a second. Alright, everything should be good to go now. And we have a horn. It's kind of a wimpy horn, but it's all good. You can turn this for days. Hopefully this will be a long-term fix, and I won't have to worry about any of this again. Took this wire up in here with all my other wiring, and that is fixed. Got a horn. So something weird about this vehicle, that orange one, I could leave it up for 10 hours, 12 hours, and I could start seeing it drop already. This one, I aired this truck up on Saturday. It is still way in the air. I really don't understand, because today is Thursday. It's really confusing me, but I'm okay with it. This side, this corner here is dropping some, but not much. I mean, it's been sitting for days. I've never had an air ride vehicle that would sit for days aired up. So this is going to be pretty awesome. I've used the thread sealant from Loctite. I think it's 545, something to that nature. 595, I don't know. But and then nickel plated DOT approved push to connect fittings, and that's the air jacks manual valves. And I don't have my gauges put in yet. I've just got plugged. I got them plugged for right now. So eventually I'll have all of that together in a center console. Just thought I'd share that with you guys. But all right, have an awesome day. Hope the horn repair helped somebody. All right, talk to you later.